before I bring him out, be sure to set your DVRs, pop some popcorn, and get ready for next Wednesday night when this man faces Kamala Harris. I wouldn't want to debate him, that's all I'm saying. You know, our president has made a lot of great decisions. Withdrawing from the Iran nuclear deal, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, defunding Planned Parenthood, the 3 Supreme Court picks. But I want to tell you something. The best decision he's made, he made when he chose our next speaker to be his running mate, his vice president, and his governing partner. I've had the privilege and the opportunity to see them interact, and I know that our next speaker is held in great respect, in great affection by the leader of the free world, and he should, because this is a man who knows what he believes, knows why he believes it. He's a true blue conservative. He's a follower of Jesus Christ. He hails from the heartland. The values of the Midwest course through his veins and give meaning to his life, like faith in God and hard work and love of country. We are truly honored beyond words to welcome a man who I believe is one of the greatest persons to ever occupy the office of Vice President. Please give a warm welcome to Vice President Mike Pence.
She stood in the street, smiling from her head to her feet. I said, hey, what is this? Now, baby, maybe she's in need of a kiss. I said, hey, what's your name, baby? Maybe we can see things the same. Now, don't you wait, oh, hesitate. Let's move.
Well, hello, Georgia. To my friend Ralph Reed, to all of the great faith and freedom champions gathered here, it is great to be back in the Peach State. With the men and women of the Faith and Freedom Coalition that are going to make a difference for victory in 34 days. I want to thank you for that very warm welcome. I also want to say thank you to Ralph Reed. I appreciate those overly generous words, but Ralph knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and it is my great honor to be with all of you today. And really just to be here to say thank you. Thanks for all you've done so far, all you are doing to make such an incredible difference in this election. Ralph Reed just told me that the Faith Freedom Coalition has already knocked on 2,383,000 doors, and we still got 30 days left. Thank you, Ralph. So I'm grateful to each and every one of you, but I am grateful to my friend Ralph Reed and to his incredible wife, Joanne. Thank you for all you've done for the cause of faith and freedom for all these years. Join me in thanking Ralph Reed and Joanne Reed for all they've done for America. It really is great to be here with so many friends. People like Bishop Harry Jackson, who's with us here today. The incomparable Alveda King. Reverend Paula White is with us. And it's a special honor to be here with a man who I was just informed not only knows how to play the drums, but also was awarded the first Antonin Scalia Defender of Justice Award for his stalwart defense of the Constitution, equal justice under the law. Join me in congratulating Jay Sekulow one more time. What a great American. Congratulations, Jay. But please be seated, be comfortable. I got a lot to say. Really is good to be among so many friends. And speaking of friends of mine, allow me to bring greetings from a friend of mine, and a man who has stood for faith and freedom every single day from inauguration day to this. I bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. And it's good to be with all of you here, but I'm really here for one reason and one reason only. And that is that Georgia and America need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. For faith, we need 4 more years. I'll tell you what, I don't know if all of you stayed up last night and watched that debate. You know, I told Brett Baer on Fox before the debate started. He said, "What's going to happen?" I said, "Well, President Donald Trump's going to take our case to the American people, and he's going to take the fight to Joe Biden." He did. President Donald Trump knows how to fight for what we believe in, and he won that presidential debate hands down. Now we're just 34 days. 34 days from another great victory for faith and family and freedom across America. Because we've got a great story to tell. I mean, from day one, this president has worked tirelessly to keep the promises that he's made. The people who cherish faith and freedom all across this country. I mean, 4 years ago, we inherited a military hollowed out by devastating budget cuts, an economy that was struggling to break out of the slowest recovery since the Great Depression. Terrorism was on the rise around the world. And maybe worst of all, we had witnessed 8 years of a steady assault on our most cherished liberties. But I couldn't be more proud to stand before you today as your Vice President and as the father-in-law and father of 2 members of the Armed Forces of the United States to tell you that we rebuilt our military. We restored the arsenal of democracy. And we are once again giving our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guard, and Space Force the resources and the support that they deserve. In fact, President Donald Trump, with our strong allies in the Congress, has actually signed the largest investments in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan, including the largest military pay raise in 10 years. And with that renewed American strength, we've taken the fight to radical Islamic terrorists on our terms, on their soil. Where Joe Biden sent pallets of cash to the mullahs in Iran, President Donald Trump got us out of the Iran nuclear deal. And this president gave the order to take out the world's most dangerous terrorist. Qasem Soleimani is gone, and America and our allies are safer as a result. So we've stood with those who serve, and we've also stood with those of you who've worn the uniform of the United States. When Joe Biden was vice president, you all remember, we saw years of scandal at the VA that shocked the conscience of the nation. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of Americans literally died waiting for care at the VA. When President Trump came to office, He signed the most sweeping reforms of the VA in more than 50 years. We've fired thousands of hospital employees that are not giving our veterans the support they deserve, and now Veterans Choice is available for every veteran in America. And in our first 3 years, this president rolled his sleeves up. After seeing the last administration, when Joe Biden was vice president, that tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy, President Donald Trump worked with our allies in Congress. We cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses. We unleashed American energy, whereas last year, America is a net exporter of energy for the first time in 70 years. We rolled back more federal red tape already than any administration in American history. We fought for free and fair trade, and in our first 3 years, businesses large and small created more than 7 million good-paying jobs, including 236,000 jobs right here in Georgia. So we've stood for our national security, we fought for prosperity, and we delivered in those first 3 years. And every step of the way, President Donald Trump has stood for the rule of law. As I stand before you today, I'm incredibly proud to report that we've seen more than 230 conservatives appointed to our federal courts at every level, including Justice Neil Gorsuch and Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And I promise you, they are all men and women of integrity who will uphold all the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Now, 1 week ago, we paused as a nation to rightly honor the life of service of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But when the memorials were over, President Donald Trump fulfilled his duty under the Constitution of the United States when he nominated a principled conservative woman of amazing intellect and incredible family who loves the Constitution of the United States. He named Judge Amy Coney Barrett as our nominee for the Supreme Court. Yesterday, I was at the United States Senate. I had the privilege of escorting Judge Barrett to the Senate chambers. She's back on Capitol Hill today, meeting with the senators. The President and I are both challenging Democrats on Capitol Hill to give Judge Barrett the respectful and dignified hearing that she deserves. The American people expect nothing less. But we have reason to be concerned. You all remember during her last confirmation hearing for the Court of Appeals, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee actually criticized Judge Barrett's Catholic faith, saying, and I quote, "The dogma lives loudly within you." Hollywood elites have already begun to criticize her and her family for their faith. Well, I got news for the Democrats and their Hollywood elites. That dogma lives loudly in me. That dogma lives loudly in you. And the American people have the right to live, to work, and worship according to the dictates of our faith and conscience for every American. These attacks on Judge Barrett's faith have got to stop, and they've got to stop now in their tracks. So the Senate has a job to do. The President's done his job. Their duty is to advise and consent. And going to work with Republicans and Democrats of goodwill to go through the process, to go through the hearing. But I'll make a prediction. We're going to fill that seat. And Judge Amy Coney Barrett is going to be Justice Amy Coney Barrett. So we've stood for the rule of law, strengthened the foundations of our liberties in the courts of this land. And President Donald Trump has stood every day with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement, and we always will. The President and I know what all of you know. Men and women who serve in law enforcement are some of the best people in this country. You know, my uncle was a cop in Chicago for 25 years, and when we'd go up and visit my dad's family from our small town in southern Indiana, my three brothers and I would marvel as my uncle would come out wearing that uniform, strapping on a sidearm. All of my heroes wear uniforms. I mean, the truth is, the men and women who serve in law enforcement choose every single day to count our lives more important than their own. And the men and women of law enforcement deserve the respect of every American every day. Now, President Trump and I will always support we will always support the right of Americans to peaceful protest. It's enshrined in our Constitution. But rioting and looting is not peaceful protest. Burning businesses is not free speech. Violence against innocent civilians and property and law enforcement will not be tolerated, and those who do these things will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, for months, all Joe Biden talked about was peaceful protesters, remember? All summer long, as you saw violence in the streets of our cities, including here in Atlanta. Literally, he and his running mate just talked about peaceful protesters while Americans literally watched businesses burn in our major cities. The truth is, Joe Biden would double down on the very policies that are leading to violence in America's cities. When you reduce support for those who serve and protect, you only embolden those who would do us harm and do harm to our families. Now, Joe Biden says that America is systemically racist, his words, and that law enforcement has, and I quote, an implicit bias against minorities. When Joe Biden was asked whether he'd support cutting funding to law enforcement, he replied, yes, absolutely. And his running mate recently said again that we need to reimagine law enforcement in this country. Well, I'll make you a promise. Under President Donald Trump, we're not going to reimagine anything. We're going to back the blue. And we're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. Under this president and this administration, we're going to have law and order in every city, in every state in this nation, for every American of every race and creed and color, so help us God. I mean, to hear the other side say it, they say we got to choose between supporting law enforcement or supporting our African-American families or our minority families in our major cities. And the truth is, under President Trump's leadership, we have done both for the last 3.5 years. We've supported law enforcement with additional resources. We have supported our African-American neighbors with more jobs, more investments, more school choice. and we're going to keep supporting both for 4 more years. So we've made great progress on security and the rule of law, and we stood strong for law and order in this country. And all along the way, this president has kept the promises that he's made to people who cherish faith and freedom, like no other president in my lifetime. Beginning with a historic decision that he made. You know, 4 previous presidents had made promises concerning our most cherished ally, but it was President Donald Trump who kept that promise when he moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. And I have to tell you, Ralph, when he was going through that decision, to say that every leader in the world and every fancy foreign policy expert in the country tried to talk him out of it would be an understatement. I mean, the phone kept ringing. I actually could see the reason why 4 previous presidents in both political parties had been spun around on their heels, but not President Donald Trump. People told this president that it would make peace less possible. But this president knew that if you want to negotiate, the first thing you do is take off the table what's not negotiable. And Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the state of Israel. But the president also believed that it could make peace more possible. But the skeptics wondered. That was right up until a couple of weeks ago, when for the first time in 26 years, not 1 but 2 Arab nations formally recognized the Jewish state of Israel. That's history. That's progress. That's the leadership of President Donald Trump. So he's kept promises that he made. And I have to tell you, standing before all of you who cherish faith and freedom, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. President Donald Trump is the most pro-life president in American history. It's true. On just his 4th day in office, the president reinstated what's known as the Mexico City policy. We ended all government funding to support and promote abortion around the world, and before another year was out, we expanded that prohibition. In our first year in office, I'll never forget the day I was standing next to the Resolute desk. The president was being informed that the March for Life had come to Washington, D.C. in January. But the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was going to be in town that day, and the president was not going to be able to address the crowd. And I remember I stood next to the desk, and I said rather modestly, well, you know, they invited me too. And it's true. It's true. And the president looked up at me from the desk and said, they invited you to speak? And I said, yeah. And he says, I mean, it's something you want to do? And I said, well, you know, we've been to the March for Life a lot of times, took our kids when they were little. We've spoken there more than a few times. And he said, oh, you should definitely go. And I became the first vice president in American history ever to address the March for Life. And this year, President Donald Trump addressed the March for Life on the National Mall. Wow. And what a choice we faced. Joe Biden, his running mate, and the radical left all support abortion on demand. and taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. They're calling for historic increases in the largest abortion provider in America. And Joe Biden, for years, had been one of those Democrats who, while he supported abortion rights, he had always voted for what's known as the Hyde Amendment. The late and great Henry Hyde crafted legislation that prevented taxpayer dollars from being used to fund abortions. Joe Biden had always supported the Hyde Amendment, but no more. Last year, he abandoned his historic support for the Hyde Amendment. In fact, the Democratic Party even blocked the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, which would provide the provision of medical care for babies that survive attempted abortions. Well, for President Trump, we've put protecting the unborn at the center of our national agenda. Our president took action toward ending fetal tissue research at the National Institute of Health, and just last week he signed another executive order protecting born alive infants all across America. And I have to tell you, as Vice President, I have the privilege from time to time to cast tie-breaking votes in the United States Senate. But one of the proudest moments in my career was when I had the privilege to cast the tie-breaking vote for a law that would allow states to defund Planned Parenthood, and President Donald Trump signed the bill. So we've stood for life. And with 4 more years, I promise you, we always will. And also from day one, this president has also taken strong steps and strong action to defend what we call our first freedom, the freedom of religion. First off, early in our administration, President Trump made it clear we don't believe the freedom of speech should end at the front door of our churches or any places of worship, and we stop enforcement of the Johnson Amendment. The President also took action to protect the conscience rights of doctors, nurses, teachers, and religious charities. And President Donald Trump, after the last administration when Joe Biden was vice president, literally hauled the Little Sisters of the Poor into court to force them to compromise the principles of their faith and adhere to the mandates of Obamacare. President Donald Trump ended the assault on the Little Sisters of the Poor, and the Supreme Court voted by 7-2 to end it forever. It's amazing to think a group of nuns, all of whom taken a vow of poverty to render love and assistance to some of the most vulnerable in our society, were literally targeted by the last administration. And if you haven't heard it, after the Supreme Court's decision, Joe Biden announced that he plans to reimpose the Obamacare mandates on the Little Sisters of the Poor. In fact, the assault on our religious liberty continues. His running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, actually attacked one of our judicial nominees for being a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus. Well, men and women who cherish faith and freedom, these attacks on our freedom of religion must stop. The American people cherish the freedom of religion of every American of every faith. And for all he's done for faith and freedom, we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. So we made extraordinary progress after the support and all of your efforts in 2016. We rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We stood for our liberties, for law and order, and for the faith and freedom of every American. In 3 short years, we made America great again. And then the coronavirus struck from China. But I'm here to tell you, before the first documented case of community transmission in the United States, President Donald Trump did what no American president had ever done. He suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Joe Biden said at the time that that was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, as the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, President Trump's action suspending travel from China bought us an invaluable amount of time to stand up the largest national mobilization since World War II, and it saved countless American lives. Because of the President's action, we were able to begin work on a vaccine even before the month of February was out. We reinvented testing. We recently cleared more than 100 million coronavirus tests performed across this country. We saw to the production and the delivery and manufacture of hundreds of millions of supplies to our doctors and nurses. And no American who required an ICU bed or a ventilator was ever denied the health care that any one of us would want a family member to have. And as we stand here today, I'm proud to report to you, we're developing new medicines by the hour. We've approved remdesivir, convalescent plasma that are saving lives all across the country. And I believe with all my heart, before the end of this year, we will have the first safe and effective coronavirus vaccine with tens of millions of doses for the American people. Now, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought about families that have lost loved ones. And each one of us have had them and those of you that are affected on our hearts. And you'll always be in our prayers. But I also want to say how grateful we are to people of faith across this country who've seen our families through these challenging times. Even as we went through 45 days to slow the spread, it was communities of faith and people of faith that came alongside the vulnerable, that provided health care, encouragement, support, and most importantly, prayers. And it was the prayers and faith of the American people that will see us all the way through to put this coronavirus in the past. And so you have our thanks. We're going to continue to slow the spread, protect the vulnerable, and save lives. And we're opening up America again. And we're opening up America's schools. I'm proud to report to you the Second Lady of the United States, Mrs. Pence, is already back in the classroom at that Christian school teaching art. And earlier this week, we told governors around America that a new 15-minute point-of-care test you can put right in your coat pocket. 100 million of them are being distributed to states all across the country to facilitate a return to in-person learning in every school in America. And we're opening up, as I said, with that strong foundation that we all poured in those first 3 years. Less taxes, less regulation, more free and fair trade, and more American energy. After losing 22 million jobs at the height of this pandemic, we've already seen 10.6 million Americans go back to work, including 300,000 people right here in the state of Georgia. So we've gone through a time of testing. But in 34 days, we're coming to a time for choosing. And that's why the work that you're doing here, the Faith and Freedom Coalition is doing on doorsteps and phone lines all across America is so vitally important. I mean, I think you all know the choice in this election has never been clearer. The stakes have never been higher. I mean, when you think of their agenda and our agenda, it's truly remarkable. In the middle of a global pandemic, Joe Biden wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion, crushing our American recovery. President Trump, we not only cut taxes across the board in the last 3 years, we're going to keep cutting taxes for 4 more years. And we're going to bring this economy all the way back and then some. Joe Biden wants to bury our economy and our recovery under an avalanche of all new red tape. I mean, he didn't seem to know it last night, but he actually is for the Green New Deal. Did you see that? Said him not for the Green New Deal. Till some reporters went to his website and it says, "Our Green New Deal." And even Chris Wallace, who seemed to be fighting for the other side through most of the debate, called him out on it. President Trump, we not only signed more bills cutting federal red tape in the first 3 years than any administration in history, we're going to keep on chopping for 4 more years to create jobs and opportunity. And where Joe Biden is for open borders, sanctuary cities, and free health care for illegal immigrants, President Trump has made record investments in border security. Mexico's doing more to secure our southern border and theirs than ever before. And we've already started to build that wall. 300 miles and counting. And we're going to build it all, and we're going to fix this broken immigration system once and for all with 4 more years. So on one issue after another, the choice could not be more clear. On security, on prosperity, on the rule of law, and on the values that we cherish the most. And that's what brings us all here today. And it's what has millions of volunteers all across the country with Faith and Freedom Coalition working. And all of you doing the work that you're doing. Because I think you all know the choice in this election isn't going to be so much whether, after November 3rd, whether America is more Republican or more Democrat, more liberal or more conservative, more red or more blue. I think the choice in this election is whether America remains America. Whether we're going to continue to chart a path based upon our highest ideals of faith and freedom and free enterprise and free market economics, or whether we're going to let Joe Biden and the radical left take us on a hard left turn toward the kind of socialized welfare state that you can find in most of Western Europe. And the truth of the matter, the stakes are that high. That's why we have to decide right here and right now that Joe Biden will never be president of the United States. We're going to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. You know, if you visit the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, you'll read words carved on the wall that I think speak to the time in which we live. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "The God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time." But he added, "I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice does not sleep forever." Men and women, we've got to stand up for life and liberty. For the sake of America. For the sake of this generation and every generation that follows. This, then, is our task. And I want to challenge you to leave here today and have faith. As you're knocking on those doors, as you're making those phone calls, you're volunteering time, resources to the Faith and Freedom Coalition, I encourage you to have faith. Have faith in the American people. I mean, if 2016 taught us anything, It's that whatever the pundits and the Washington elites and the big media want to say, the American people are in charge in America. And I think a careful study of American history proves that every time the American people are given a choice between more freedom and less freedom, the American people choose more freedom every single time. So reach out to your neighbors and friends with faith and confidence in the American people, because this is a freedom-loving nation. Most Americans know the foundation of America is freedom. And the foundation of freedom is faith. John Adams said, memorably, our Constitution is designed only for a moral and religious people, and it's wholly inadequate for the government of any other. And in all my travels all across this country, I can tell you, I'm more convinced than ever that not only is this a freedom-loving nation, but America is a nation of faith. Everywhere I go, and I already heard it here today in Atlanta, people will step aside, sometimes lower their voice, and say, I'm praying for you. And you all know it when people mean it, don't you? You can feel it in your heart. It's the sweetest words the President and I ever hear, and we hear it all the time. And I truly do believe that as we roll our sleeves up in the next 34 days, as we do everything that we can to carry the message of all that we've done, all this President's leadership has done, to restore our military, revive our economy, to stand up for the rule of law, law and order, and life in our most cherished liberties. I encourage you to remember that the effective and fervent prayer of a righteous person availeth much. And I encourage you in the days ahead, a time where it seems like to turn on the television, it looks like there's more that divides us in this country than unites us. I truly do believe in those ancient words that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray and turn, he'll do like he's always done in much more challenging times in the life of this nation. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal this land, this one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So pray for America. Pray for all the American people. So with that, let me just thank you again. I love you too. I can't tell you. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you for the support and the prayers. For my family, for the First Family, for our good president. I leave here today with renewed confidence. If all of us do all that we can to work like it all depended on us, and to pray because we know on whom it does all depend. That old proverb that says, "The horse is made ready for the battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord." I'm absolutely convinced we're going to make Georgia and America more prosperous than ever before. We're going to make Georgia and America safer than ever before. We're going to make our liberties more secure than ever before. And with your help, and with President Donald Trump in the White House for 4 more years, and with God's grace, we're going to make America great again. Again. Thank you all very much. God bless you for all you're doing for the cause and the country, and God bless America.